Where are you going out of? I'm going from here to Newark. I'm going to United, which I haven't done in 5 years. So are you going to Chicago or Newark? I'm coming back from Chicago. I'm going to Newark through there.
Sorry. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It looks like we got it up and running. We got it working.
How many people are listening?
We got a couple people online. All right. Okay. Here we go, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Today is Wednesday. Today is Wednesday. It is the 26th of November, and we are getting ready for Parshas Vayetze. So I want to share some Divrei Torah with you that I think will really help enhance our appreciation of the Parsha. Some of these were very new to me, and I'm excited to share them with you as well. So the very first pasuk in Vayetze this week begins, we're all familiar. It says, Vayetze Yaakov mi Beersheva, that Yaakov leaves Beersheva. The reason why he's got to leave Beersheva is because Esav has it out for him. Esav really wants to destroy him, wants to kill him after having taken the brachos. And also, Yaakov's parents, Yitzchak and Rivka, they made it very clear to him that they don't want him to marry a local girl. They want him to go back to the house of Lavan, Rivka's relatives, where he will find a wife. So that's how Parshas Vayetze begins. Vayetze Yaakov me Beersheva. Yaakov leaves Beersheva. Vayelech Harana, and he goes to Haran. Very famous Rashi, one of the first Rashis at the beginning of the Parsha, and Rashi says as follows: Vayetze lo hayit tzarich lichtov ela vayelech Yaakov Harana. All you had to write, all the Torah had to write was Yaakov went to Haran. Why did it have to write Vayetze Yaakov mi Beersheva? We know he's in Beersheva. Lama hizkir yitziaso. Why does the Torah record his leaving? Ella, rather, Magid she'etzias tzadik min hamakom oser rosham. It's to teach us a lesson that when a tzaddik leaves a locale, it makes a big impact. Shebizman sha tzadik ba'ir, as long as a tzaddik is in a city, hu hoda, hu ziva, hu hadara. He is its beauty, he is its splendor, he is its majesty. Yatsa misham, when a tzaddik leaves a locale, pana hoda, pana ziva, pana hadara. Then its beauty has departed, its splendor has departed, its majesty has departed. And what's a proof to this? In Nami Verus. When Nami and Rus leave Stay Moab, it also uses an expression of Vatetse. And so the same thing, that when they left, made a massive impact on the Stay Moab, no longer had righteous people there. So that's this Rashi. I think most of us were taught this when we were younger, that's the impact, why it's telling us that Vayetze Yaakov Beersheva, to tell us Beersheva was never the same again once Yaakov left it. I don't know why, but I never thought about the following question before, and I felt so validated to see other people ask it. Who else was living in Beersheva at this time? Yaakov was leaving who? His parents. So you have Yitzchak and Rivka there. You're going to tell me Beersheva is bereft? You've got Yitzchak and Rivka. You've got wonderful tzaddikim there. So we're going to say, oh no, Yaakov left as long as he was there. Hu hoda, hu ziva, hu adara. He was its beauty. He was its splendor. He was its majesty. Yatsa misham, as soon as he left, pana hoda. Beersheva has lost its splendor. Pana ziva, it's lost its majesty. Pana hadara, it's lost its glory, its beauty, its majesty, its splendor. Everything's been lost. Who are Yitzchak and Rivka? They're chopped liver. They're still there, and they're going to hold up the fort just fine. So why are we making? We're crying so much about Yaakov leaving. Okay, but it's not like Beersheva's never going to be the same again. Like this massive cloud of depression has now wallowed over Beersheva. You still got Yitzchak. You still got Rivka. Okay. But would you say this expression of pana hoda, pana ziva, pana hadara, that its splendor has departed, its beauty has departed, when you say that, it makes it sound like it's like, wow, it's just left in this desolate ruins at this point. It's been totally deflated. That's what it sounds like. Yeah, but it sounds this way. It sounds this way from Rashi. I always read this Rashi that say like, you feel the air going out of the tires now. What do you mean? There's still some, you got wonderful tzaddikim there. That was what was bothering me. I felt very validated to see that this question was raised, but you'll see how it's answered. Somewhere along the lines where Cindy's suggesting, but we'll see a little bit more. It says as follows. We're going to first see the Re'im. The Re'im is an acronym for Rav Elio Mizrahi. Mizrahi was one of the big commentators on Rashi. So the Mizrahi says as follows. I found a really good printing of it that I put on the sheet here. So it says, V'im Tomar, if you would ask the question, Bishlam Agame Nami, I understand when it came to Nami leaving Moab, you could say, oh yeah, Moab's never going to be the same because Nami's gone. I get that. Kivan sheyatzas misham panaziva. I understand when Nami's left Moab, yeah, its splendor is gone. It ain't coming back. Why? The only tzaddikus in Moab was Nami. So when she's gone, the air's out of the tires. That's gone. By the way, it doesn't mention Rus, and we're going to see the Medrash also. Rashi mentioned both Nami and Rus. It just mentions Nami. At this point, when they left, Rus still hadn't converted, hadn't made that dedication yet of wherever you go, I go, and all that stuff. So Nami's the real tzaddikus at this point. So I get it. When she left, Moab is never going to be the same because Nami's gone. However, Elahacha, but in this case, when we're talking about Beersheba, Harei Nishar Sham Yitzchak, you've got Yitzchak and Rivka. So how do you say that? Okay, its splendor is gone. Everything's gone. So he says, okay, that's not such a big kasha. Kvar tirtzu al zeh bebereishis Rabbah. The Medrash already addresses this. She'eno doma zechusu shel tzadik echad. There's a huge difference when you have one tzadik in a place. Lezechusun shel shnei tzadikim. When you got two tzadikim. When you have more than one tzadik, boom, the place is booming. When you just left with Yitzchak and Rivka, that absence is so noticeable. You're right. It's not bereft. It's not like a wasteland, but it's still a major impact. And I think this is along the lines of what Cindy was saying. Everyone's important. So everyone, when they leave, it's noticeable. So don't read this Rashi that's saying that it's absolutely a squalor. It's been left desolate. It's just like all the life's been sucked out of it. That's not there. Oh, you're right. There still is a strong energy. There's real positive energy in Beersheba, and that's based on Yitzhak and Rivka. But there was something demonstrably different. That's what seems to be what the Mizrahi is saying. I think that's very much along the lines of what Cindy was suggesting. Let's take a look at the Medrash, and we'll see a commentary on the Medrash that adds, I think, another dimension to this. So the Medrash says as follows. This is towards the end of the piece. So the first line. Rav Azariah b'shem Rabbi Yehuda bar Simon v'Rav Chanin b'shem Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak Amar. So these Tanoim said as follows: Shat Sadik be'ir, when you've got a righteous person in the town, hu ziva, he is the splendor, hu adara, he's its glory. Yatzah misham, when the tzaddik leaves, pana ziva, that's when the splendor leaves. Pana hadara, that's when the glory leaves as well. Nicha de Taman, I understand that that's the case when it came to Nami. To Lohaisa Sham Ela Oso Tzedekas Bovad. There was only that one Tzedekas. There was only one Tzedekas that was still in Moab, and that was Nami. So when she's gone, yeah, it's shut out the lights behind her. Elahacha, but here when it comes to Beersheba, to have a Yitzchak v'Rivka, you have Yitzchak and Rivka still there. So why? What is it? What's so bad about Beersheba? Rav Azariah b'shem Rav Simon Amar lo dama zechuso shel tzadik echad lezechuso shel snei tzadikim. There's a world of a difference when you have one tzadik left, which is what the case is when you got Yitzchak and Rivka, l'shnei tzadikim. When you had another tzadik there as a team, and they could feed off each other, they just become this incredible dynamic duo, you might say, and that's what it was when Yaakov was there. So it's really, really different. When Yaakov was there, it's really different. Now, I want to share with you on page 2. One of the commentaries to the Medrash is called the Anaf Yosef. The Anaf Yosef has a beautiful way to explain this line in the Medrash that I think is different than what any of us would have thought of. The Anaf Yosef fleshes this out a bit more. The Anaf Yosef writes as follows. He says, Nicha de Taman, he's going on the Medrash and the line that says, I understand in the case of Moab. Lo Haisa, there only was one Tzedekis, there only was Nami. So I get it, that when she leaves, Moab is just shut the lights. Even the Medrash, take a step back. When the Medrash began by asking, what's so bad to Beersheba? You still got Yitzchak and Rivka there. even the one who asked the question knows that come on, there's like what Cindy's saying. Come on, don't you know the answer? There's such a difference. Everyone's important, and when you've got someone there, you got two parties there. It's more powerful than it's just one. Aval chashav, but the one who asked the question thought shehefer shebeneim who kaflaim levad. It doubles the power. In other words, let's say one tzaddik adds, I don't know, 100 watts of energy. So now you plug in another, it's another light bulb. So now it's 200 watts. You think it's just double. So the Havamina was, what does an additional tzaddik add? It doubles the energy. L'chein maksha, therefore he asks, to bishlama taman, I get it when it came to Moav. Lo have elahi. All there was Naami. So I get it. If all it's an additional tzaddik does is double the energy, so okay, let's go back to Moab, where there was only one tzaddik, so she's gone, lights are out. But in our case, if all a tzaddik does is double the energy, you got two. So okay, so instead of being twice as bright, it's just you've got 100 watts. That's not pana ziva, pana hadra, pana everything. So he says taman b'moav bishlam taman b'moav lavi elahi. In the case of Moav, all there was Nami. Param hacha lo havis Yitzchak v'Rivka. Here we got Yitzchak and Rivka, so there's still going to be some light sign. V'imkein lo Yitzchak omro. Therefore, it doesn't justify saying pana ziva v'hadara, that its splendor and glory is gone. Shin pana lo pana lechatzi ziva v'hadara. What's gone? Only half of it's gone. In other words, you say this expression of pana ziva, pana hadara makes it sound like the lights are out. The lights are not out. It's just half as bright because Yitzchak and Rivka are still there. Yaakov's gone. That's what the Medrash is asking. The Heshiv Rabbi Azariah is telling us, no, you don't understand what happens when you've got multiple tzaddikim. The Heshiv Rabbi Azariah is answering that second column. Lo dome. There's no comparison. Rasulullah, what is he saying? She'ein hadavar kain. It's not like what you think. It's not that every tzaddik just adds another 100 watts. Elakachu, this is the way it works. Shim kishiyesh tzaddik echad be'ir, yesh l'mashal chamishim shirim. Let's say when you've got one tzaddik in town, you've got 50 measures of good, shal ziv v'hadar, of splendor and glory. The kasher yiyah beis tzaddikim. And now when I bring in a second, it doesn't just double it. Yala b'madrega gedola. It just explodes. L'alaf alfei shirim. It's now thousands of times brighter. Shal ziv v'hadar. The way it works when you've got another tzaddik, when they join forces, it doesn't just double it. It just boom, it explodes. There's like this some kind of nuclear reaction that takes place when you combine two tzaddikim. Therefore, lachein ata kasher yatsa Yaakov mi Beersheva. Now, when Yaakov leaves Beersheva, kolosa miles haziv hadar pana v'halachlo. Now you're just back down to that 50 watts. That's what he was saying. There was 50 measures. You had this nuclear reaction that takes place. Something incredible happens on a ruchnius level, on a spiritual level. When you combine tzaddikim, it doesn't just double their force. It takes off thousands of times brighter. Now, when that other one leaves, and now you're just down to the 50 measures, now you can say pana ziva, pana hadar. You're right. The lights are still on, but it's a shell of what it was before. It's a shadow of what it was before. What's left is really considered like nothing compared to what there was moments ago when you had two tzaddikim there, because they cause a nuclear reaction when you combine those forces. The yutztak bamro. Now it makes sense to say pana ziva v'hadara. That it's the splendor and glory is gone. I think what we get from this, Anaf Yosef, how he's understanding the Medrash, is we sometimes don't give ourselves enough credit of what's going on and what another person might add. You say, okay, there's already a minyan. What's another person? There's already enough people davening. What does one more person contribute? It's not just one more seat that fills up. When you have another person that's participating and coming to shul and coming to a Torah learning, it doesn't just add one more body. There's some nuclear reaction that takes place. There's an explosion of spirituality it's off the charts. It's not just one body. It's something incredible happens. So we should really think twice before we decide to just hit the snooze button on our clock and roll over and say, nah, I'm not going to go to shul today. They're doing fine just without me. I'm not going to go to that shir. They're doing okay without me. One more person being there it's exponential that what that person adds is just off the charts. It's not just check one more box with another person there. There's something that happens when the neshamas of Jews get together, and especially when they're righteous, when they're good people, and we're motivated for good reason to get together, for Torah, for mitzvos. The equation is far different than what we had assumed that it was. So I think that's just a beautiful lesson there that makes us realize and can motivate us sometimes to get involved in a mitzvah, to get involved in a shul, to get involved in a minyan, to get involved in coming to davening, even if they look, they're doing just fine without me. No way. Every additional person, every additional Jew creates an incredible difference. It's not just doubling or adding one more to the body, to the counts that are there before. It's far different than that. And that's the only way to explain this. I thought that's a very cool idea. I think there's also one other idea that could be added to this, and this is from Rabbi Shlomo Margolis. We've quoted him several times over the last couple of years. Again, this was a Talmud of Navardik. He ended up as a shul rabbi for decades in Boston, and in his Dark Ash Shlemos, he has a very small commentary, and I think it's a little bit different than it's Anaf Yosef, but it dovetails with it very well. He's bothered by the same problem that the pasuk says, "Vayetze Yaakov mi Beersheva." Magid and teaches Sheyatzias Yaakov min Hamakom Osaroshem. When a tzaddik leaves, it makes a huge impact. Kol echad tzarich lishtadel. He says the lesson of this Rashi is each of us have to put in the effort ulahosif kedusha to add more kedusha ala makom to any place. We should never be satisfied that there are enough people there already who are bringing positive influence, bringing positive energy. What do they need me for? Shahalach Yitzchak, Shahalo Yitzchak Gam Hayasham. Because think about it, Yitzchak was there in Beersheva, V'afal Piken, and even with all that, Gam Yaakov Hosif Nofach Mishalo. Yaakov had something individual to add, which was uniquely his. V'lo Omar, Yaakov did not say, Mi ani, who am I? Hello, yesh gedola mimenu. There's greater people than me there. Yitzchak's there. What can I possibly add? And what proves this? Shahosif, that how do I know that Yaakov added and contributed so much? Shikshiyatsa, that when Yaakov left, Nikeras makom. Everyone took note of the fact that Yaakov departed. Pana hoda, pana ziva, pana hadara. And we could certainly say that its glory departed, its beauty departed, its splendor departed. I think what Rabbi Margolis is adding to the same point, and he's saying that takeaway lesson from this. None of us should ever belittle our involvement and say, what can I possibly contribute? It's not true. Every one of us, by being there, by being present, and by taking part, we add exponentially. The power of ruchnius and spirituality that's gained from Jews getting together for something good and important, for Torah and mitzvos, it's just unbelievable. And nobody should ever think they're doing just fine without me. What could I possibly add? And the proof to that is look what happened when Yaakov left. It was so discernible. It was so noticeable that something cosmic had just changed. I think he's on the same page. I think he's saying the same point. But I love how he's making this the takeaway lesson from that. All right, let's look at a second of our Torah. We're on the bottom of page 2, and here's a second of our Torah. The bottom of page 2 tells us about the initial encounter between Yaakov and his future wife, Rachel. We know that Yaakov had to run away. When he arrives in the land, in the region of Lavan, he immediately goes to the well. So let's see what he says. Yaakov es Rachel, when he sees Rachel, Bas Lavan, who's the daughter of Lavan, Achi Imo, Lavan was the brother of his mother, Rivka. I'm just going to take a drink. Veson Lavan, and he also saw all the flock of sheep, Achi Imo. Vayigash Yaakov, that Yaakov drew near. Vayagel seven me'al pi haber. He uncorked the well, the stone that had been blocking it. Vayashk etzon Lavan achimo, and he gave all of the sheep belonged to Lavan, his mother's brother. He gave them what to drink. Yud Aleph. Vayishak Yaakov l'Rachel, and then he gave a kiss to Rachel. Vayisas kolo vayev, and he raised his voice and he wept. I just think that I just noticed that this year, I must have noticed the previous years too. I love the style of these two psukim, because look at one pasuk. One pasuk says Vayashk es tzon, And then the next, Vayishak Yaakov. You look at it, it's the same word, but it has two really, really different meanings. Vayashka son didn't mean that he kissed the sheep. Vayashka son means he gave them to drink. And then Vayishak, and then he gave his future wife Rachel gave her a kiss. So it's just amazing. The same word, but it's a play on words almost in these psukim there. Vayashke satzon and Vayishak Rachel. I think that's very, very. So I think what you'll find in terms of getting to the to the shorish, I don't know. I don't know you because you'll find like
the water is
Linashek is to kiss, right? But so it's probably Shin Kuf is probably the shorish. And look at Vayash Kesatzon is the same.
The water.
No, but
I don't know.
Yeah, but I'm saying it looks like it's the same shorish, the Shin Kuf. I'd have to get to the bottom of that. Like how do you get with such two very, very different meanings?
Takes all the shorish.
Breaks them down. Interesting. Okay, let's see one more pasuk. Vayaged Yaakov LaRachel, and then Yaakov tells Rachel, Ki achi aviyahu, and he's a very close relative of his father, of her father. Excuse me, Vichi ben Rivkahu, and he's a son of Rivka. Vataretz vatake levia. She runs home to tell her father. So let's see Rashi on Yud Aleph. Rashi on Yud Aleph is going to give us two different reasons for why was it that Yaakov began to cry. So Vayef, Yaakov cried. So he says the first pshat is Lafishet Safa Beruach HaKodesh. He was able to see through divine inspiration She'ena Nechnesas Imola Kvura, that they wouldn't be buried together. They were going to be married. They would enjoy, and they would bring children into the world together. But he had a sudden vision that they wouldn't lay for eternity. They wouldn't be laying side by side. That made him cry. Davar Acher, what else made him cry? Lefi Shabab Yadayim Rekaniyos. He came empty-handed. Amar, he said, Eliezer Eved Avi, Abba. Look at Eliezer, who was the servant of my grandfather, of Avram. He had all sorts of jewelry. He had nose rings. He had bracelets and migdanos, and he had special foods. Vani ein biadi klum. He came with 10 camels filled with gifts when he came to find Rivka. And I'm coming, I've got nothing. Now, why does he have nothing? Because he had been chased down by Eliphaz, who was the son of Esav, his nephew. This is his nephew, Eliphaz. B'mitzvas aviv acharav lahargov esigo. He had been sent on a mission by his father Esav to basically search and destroy. Find Yaakov, find your uncle Yaakov, and kill him. Find him and kill him. And he finally did catch him. Vesigo, he caught him. But Eliphaz was in a quandary. He was torn. He had grown up on the lap of Yitzchak, his grandfather. Mashach Yodav, he decided to pull back. He says, I can't do this. I can't follow through with this request to kill Yaakov. Amar lo, but he says to Yaakov, Ma'asel tziva shalaba. What do I do? I've got these conflicting demands. I've got kibbut aveim on one hand. I got kabed esavicha. My father told me to kill you. But on the other hand, I've got to respect my grandfather Yitzchak. I know killing is wrong. And what do I do? How can I give me something? Throw me a bone, Uncle Yaakov. I want to save your life, but give me some way that I should be able to sleep at night. So Amar lo Yaakov. Yaakov says, here's what you do. Tol ma shebiadi. Take everything I have. Take all my money. But ani chashuv kames. We have a Talmudic concept that an ani, someone who's destitute, has nothing, chashuv kames is considered dead. So if you take every last dime, every last item I have, I'm left with nothing but the shirt on my back and my walking stick, technically I'm now considered dead. So you can tell your father in good consciousness that Yaakov is dead. You can say that to him. You don't have to say, I killed him, I murdered him. You could say, I saw to it that Yaakov is dead. What does that mean? It's like a Gemara cup. It means, what does that mean? I saw to it that he's dead because ani chashuv kames, and I took every last cent that he has. I went to the pawn shop with it. That's what he could say there. So that's why Yaakov now shows up and he's crying. I've got nothing, even though I came from a rich house. I've got nothing. I've got nothing with me because of I was left penniless. That's the second pshat that Rashi brings down as to why he cried. Okay, let's see something. I saw that Rabbi Margolis makes the following very powerful observation. Look back just 2 chapters earlier, right? This is chapter 29. 2 chapters earlier, which is in last week's Parsha, at the end of Toldos, right after Yaakov has stolen the brachos, what do we see? That Esav remarks. So the pasuk says in Mem Aleph, Perak of Zion 27, Vayistom Esav es Yaakov. Esav hates Yaakov, ala bracha, because of the brachos asher berucho aviv, because of the blessings that his father blessed him that he felt should have been his. Vayomer Esav bilibo, so Esav now says in his heart of hearts, Yikruvu yemei evel avi, let the days of mourning for my father Yitzchak draw near, the aharga, and I will kill Yaakov. The arga is Yaakov achina, I'll kill my brother Yaakov. But I don't want to do it while Yitzchak's still alive. Wait till Yitzchak dies, and then I'll kill Yaakov. What does Rashi say to explain that? Yikravu yimei evel avi, mashmo, exactly what it implies. Shelo atzares abba. I can't cause my dad Yitzchak any pain, because again, Esav's a Gaon, he's an absolute sage when it comes to kibbut avayim, so he can't cause his father any pain. So therefore, he says, wait, he's going to wait until Yitzchak dies. Once Yitzchak's dead, then he's going to hunt down Yaakov and kill him. So I saw that Rabbi Margolis has the following observation on page 4. Rabbi Margolis says, now plug that Rashi from Toldos into this Rashi in Vayetze, and we've got like a schizophrenic on our hands. Look at Esav. He says, Vayisa kol vayevk. It says by Yaakov that when he saw Rachel, he lifted his voice and cried, and he gave 2 pshatim. The first explanation is because he's not going to lay next to her for eternity. They won't be buried together. The second explanation was that he's penniless. Why is he penniless? Because Eliphaz stole all his stuff. So let's see Rabbi Margolis. He had been chased down by Eliphaz, his nephew, who had been commanded by his father, Lahargo, to kill him. He says, 1 second. Uvamakom acher, in another place, last week's parsha, at the end of Toldos, Nemar, what did it say? Esav had declared, Yikravu yemei avel aviv harga, that I'm going to wait until Yitzchak dies and then I'll kill Yaakov, as Yaakov achi. Shalol etzares aviv, because he didn't want to cause his father pain. V'yachshav, and now, here we are, 2 prakim later, kfar avad Esav gam es hergish hazeh. Esav has lost that sensitivity that he had not to cause his father pain. V'sholeach es Eliphaz, and he's dispatched Eliphaz beno, his own son, lareges Yaakov, to kill Yaakov, aval pishi yitzaris aviv, even though it's going to cause his father pain. Is Esav a schizophrenic? What happened to that Esav? That same Esav that says, I've got to wait till Yitzchak dies till I hunt down and kill Yaakov. I can't kill him while Yitzchak's alive because it's going to cause him such pain. 2 prakim later, what does Rashi say? Why is Yaakov crying? Because he was penniless? Because Eliphaz, Esav's son, was sent on a mission by Esav to kill him. But Yitzchak's still alive. We know Yitzchak's still alive because in next week's Parsha, in Vayishlach, he goes to meet Yitzchak. So Yitzchak's still alive. What happened to that sensitivity that he doesn't want to cause Yitzchak any pain by killing Yaakov while he's still alive? But he was just as upset in last week's Parsha. Yeah. It seems as if all the commercials tell us this when it comes to financial investments. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Is that people change. Never assume that anybody, just because the way we knew them yesterday is the way that we know them today. Don't ever assume that. Just because a person could have been excelled in one character trait yesterday, don't assume they're still holding there today. People change. We change. We are fluid. We are not the same person that not necessarily, unless we're making a conscious effort to hold on to whatever level it was that we had yesterday. There's no guarantee we're going to be that way tomorrow. And Cindy said that's depressing, but I want to say it's not depressing because just like that works, correct. Just like this works in terms of losing good character traits, this also works when it comes to dropping our bad character traits. Past performance is not indicative of future results. People change. People change for the worse, but people also change for the better. And there are people, I don't want you to walk away depressed. There are people out there that we could have lost touch with years ago. And then we bump into them later and we say, you're the same guy. Last time I saw you, you weren't this kind of person. Last time I saw you, you didn't care about X, Y, and Z. Last time I saw you, you were up to A, B, and C. And look at you now. This is fantastic. Past performance is not indicative of future results. I often think of this. My brother Josh always had this story that when he was in, I believe it was second grade or fifth grade. I don't remember which one it was. We had a Rebbe in elementary school. I was fortunate to have the same Rebbe in both sixth and fifth grade. Rabbi Kalman Fishman of blessed memory. What a wonderful Rebbe he was. And Rabbi Fishman had a thing that at the end of the year, if you had done enough things right, he would reward the class and take us to a Cleveland Indians game. Now, two differences. Nowadays, they're no longer called the Cleveland Indians, right? They're not called the Cleveland Indians anymore. I think what is the name?
Ridiculous name.
Oh my God, I forgot the name.
Something.
Is it the Commanders?
Command.
Is that what it is?
No.
I don't remember.
Baseball player, though.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. That what it is? Is it the Commanders? Okay, so that's what so they changed the name to be sensitive to Native Americans. When there's a massive debate, by the way, first of all, whether Native Americans were offended by that or they saw it as a point of pride. So there's a big debate. But there's a second difference is that the stadium that they play in it's probably about 20 years ago, they built a beautiful new stadium for the Indians. I think it's called Jacobs Field, and then a bank bought the naming rights to it. So it's no longer called Jacobs Field. I forgot which bank bought it. But whatever it is, it was a beautiful stadium. The old stadium that they played in was the old Cleveland Municipal Stadium, which was the same stadium that the Browns played in, the football team. And that was huge. It was something like 60. I think it was some huge number. I don't it probably wasn't 60,000. It was some huge number of people that were there. And it was never filled. For the Browns games, it would fill because they had these crazy football fans that wanted to be out there in the winter in the freezing cold stadium. But for the Indians games, it never filled. So I remember as a kid, there were so many opportunities. They would be like, you get a tank of gas, we'll give you 3 Indians tickets. Like they were giving away tickets to try to bring people in to make the stadium look more full. So Rabbi Fishman at the end of the year would treat the boys, if you did enough right, you got enough checks by your name, he would take you to a Cleveland Indians game. And I'm assuming that's how we got the tickets at such a rock bottom, price like that. So my brother remembers that at that time, especially when he was in his class, there was a much more diverse student population in the Hebrew Academy of Cleveland. I mean, in my day too, you had a big mix. You had kids coming from the Tells families, you had kids coming from very modern Orthodox families, and then you had vanilla families like our own. But I don't think we had too many kids who weren't Shomer Shabbos. I can remember 1 or 2 in the younger grades. My brother, he remembers there were plenty in his grades. So he remembers that there was one that at the end of the year they were going to this Cleveland Indians game, and there was one kid from a non-Shomer Shabbos home that wanted to show his defiance of Rabbi Fishman. So when the guy came around selling the hot dogs, the foot-long hot dogs, he raised his hand and he says, "Yes, I'll take one here." And he, flashed his dollar bills, whatever it was. And the hot dog man has no idea what's going on. Okay, we got a kid who wants a hot dog. So he starts preparing a hot dog, putting on all the ketchup, mustard, whatever, wraps it up in a silver foil and starts sending it. You know how it works. They send it hand to hand to hand, and it's coming down this way. And I remember my brother telling me that all the kids in the class were looking in horror as this treif hot dog is being passed to this defiant kid. And just as it's about to come to that defiant kid who's going to show everyone how he's going to eat treif in front of Rabbi Fishman and in front of the whole class because he doesn't care, all of a sudden it was like Batman. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, Rabbi Fishman just came flying over to like 3 or 4 different rows and slapped that hot dog before it could reach the kid's hand, slapped it and it went just flying and it fell on the floor somewhere. And he turned and he says, "Not on my watch. I don't know what you do at your home. I don't know what happens, but you guys are my responsibility. I took you all to the baseball game. No one's eating treif on my watch. I can't have that." That was what he said. And I remember my brother he said all the kids were just in shock. Like, where did he come from? He was like Batman. He just came like swinging in out of nowhere, flying over seats, and he slapped that hot dog in the nick of time, right at the second it was about to reach that defiant kid's hand. And my brother said he lost touch with that kid. he said something like 20 some odd years later, he was at some event in Israel, maybe because he lives in it. He basically never returned after high school. He'd come back for school breaks. He went to yeshiva, and then he went to college and stayed. And he said he was at some event because it must have been something with a Cleveland connection. And he loves playing catch up and, okay, who are you? And then connecting the dots. And he sees some guy and he totally doesn't look familiar. And where do I know you from? That name sounds so familiar. And they start playing Jewish geography. He realizes this was the kid who had ordered the hot dog at that thing, the tray of hot dog. And now he's looking at him. He's living in Israel. He's a religious guy. He's married to a nice Jewish girl. He's raising his family there. And he was just like absolutely shocked because I never knew what happened to this guy. But I never would have assumed that he was Shomer Shabbos, he was married to a Jewish girl, was raising frum kids in Israel. You never know what happened. And could it have been Rabbi Fishman's Batman act like that had some impact? Who knows? Who knows? You'll never know. But I'm sure that could have contributed to some fashion. But that's how I want to end it on a positive note. That we'll say past performance is not indicative of future results. That's what we have to remember about Esav, is that just because he was so makbid on Kibarav 2 prakim ago doesn't mean that he still is 2 prakim later. People change, and unless we're making a conscious effort to hold firm in what's important to us, there's no guarantees that we won't get swept away. But the upshot of that is that we all have the ability, we're all fluid, we all have the ability to lose grip of whatever it was we were holding on to before. And sometimes we were holding on to some pretty negative stuff before. So just on the same token that there's no guarantee we're going to hold on to the positive, there's also no guarantee that anyone's going to hold on to the negative. So we should never give up hope on anybody, including ourselves. Don't ever give up hope on ourselves. We could have messed up in so many ways. We could have failed in so many fashions, in so many ways in the past. People we know could have failed so many times. Let's never give up. There's always tomorrow, and we never know what tomorrow's going to bring. And specifically, when we have the Torah and the mitzvahs in our life, we never know what can change us. So past performance is not indicative of future results. That has both the negative side, but the flip side should be, I think, be very inspirational. Correct. And we all know people, even if we were born observant, even if we were born keeping kosher on Shabbos, we all have friends, family members, we all know people who have made incredible turnarounds in lives. And God willing, we should think of people we know who may be straying far from where they should be, may have made some bad decisions in life. Those bad decisions don't doom them to be down that path forever. God willing, we'll apply that principle of past performance is not indicative of future results. And we'll see that follow through in their lives as well. All right. I hope everyone has a good day. Thanks for joining, both to those who are here present, and thanks for